I'm going to tie my version of a checkmate nymph, and I'm starting off with a Green Caddis Outfitters 2457, and that's in a size 10. I'll add some extra weight to this, so starting at the point in the hook, I'll wrap some lead forward to just behind the eye so that I have room to tie in my other materials. The thread that I'm going to use is a 70, and this is a dark olive. Take my wraps in front of the lead and then gather it all, and then wraps through will make sure that it's not going anywhere. The back of this pattern can be tied in a variety of material. I like to use the thin skin products. They come in mottled, they come in fly specks, and then a variety of colors. For this application, I'm going to use a thin skin fly specks and the clear variety, and I do that for two main reasons. One, I'm going to put a Sharpie to this at the end, and that way I can color this any variety that I want. And two, it has a tippet rib, and the tippet will take the Sharpie a little bit differently than the thin skin will. So there's a coloration difference, and it makes that segment really pop. So I've cut a 1/4 inch strip or so of the fly skin or the thin skin fly specks, and notched just a little V into one end to help me tie it, and I'll wrap that down the bend in the hook and back up to behind the lead. Now, as I mentioned, it has a rib that's 3x tippet. I'll take a 4-inch piece or so and tie that into the side behind the lead. This has a secondary rib underneath the thin skin as well, which is going to be a gold tinsel. And if you've watched these, you know I like the two-sided tinsel. And so on one side it's gold, on the other side it's silver. So I'll cut a strip and I'll tie it in gold side down so that when I start to wrap it, it'll be gold side up. And then I'll leave that at about the point in the hook again. For the body, the back portion of it is going to be made of hare's mask, but I'm going to use the cheek fibers here. Allows me to get a real tightly dubbed body. And then I'll put in a synthetic hot spot, and then I'll finish with some of these guard hairs on the cheek as well, or on the mask as well. I'll pull off some of that cheek material. Not looking for much of a taper here, just a uniform body with a relatively slim profile. And as I dub this in, I want to make sure that I leave enough room for the hot spot and that thorax in the front of the pattern. So maybe just one more pinch just to smooth everything out there. Okay, now I can bring my tinsel through, even wraps. Until I get to my thread, and then I can tie that off and trim it. And at this point I can add in my hot spot. You can use whatever type of dubbing or hotspot you prefer. I'm going to use a synthetic here, and this is fluorescent pink. Don't need a whole lot of this. I'll put in a band to suggest that hotspot. And then for the balance, I'll come back and add in some of those guard hairs from my mask. So I'll trim off some of that material. Again, leaving enough room for me to finish the fly there behind the eye, and I'll pick that out at the end to make it real buggy. But now I can bring my thin skin up and over, keep it nice and centered on the pattern. I'm going to adjust my hook slightly so that it doesn't slip, or you can throw in a couple of whip finishes there if you'd like. And now I'll bring my tippet through, and what I'm trying to do is follow that gold rib and add the segment either in front of or behind, and then when I get to the hot spot I'll put one behind, one in front, and then I'll finish behind the eye. And I'll trim and now I can whip finish the head. And if you need to do any adjustments to the thin skin, you can still kind of move it around a little bit there. I'll pick this out to give it a real buggy look, and I'm only going to pick out that thorax. I'll leave everything else tight. Alright, and now it's the part where I can add back in some color. So if you look at it right now, it's not that bad. It's got the color coming through. Hopefully that shows up alright on camera. But I'll take a brown Sharpie to this, and I'll start and include the head. And I like the way that hotspot even comes out on top. But as I start to darken this in, you'll see that it stays lighter on the thin skin, but then on that tippet it's darker. So I think it makes that segment more pronounced. So again, you can use the colored thin skin, and I do in a lot of applications, but in this one, or when you're using a mono or a tippet over the segment, I think it adds some additional dimension. And then the last part, I'll just put a drop of head cement on the threads. And that's it. So that is my version of a Czech meat nymph.